Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today, absolute banger for you. For those of you that have ever wondered, have asked the question yourselves, or have seen another person ask this question, whether it's in-game, on Discord, somewhere else, on, is a game dying? And specifically for Call of Dragons, is CoD dying? Or is it thriving? We're going to be answering some of those questions for you today by showing you actual stats and data that will hopefully illuminate, educate, and add some nice context to whether or not you decide to make one argument or another, if you land on one side of the fence or the other. And so as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. 2 shout outs I have to give before we start. One, to the homeboy Rich, who's our software engineer for the bot that we use and post a lot of the data for. If you are interested in getting more information on the bot services, link to the Discord for that will be in the description, pinned comment down below. Also, a second shout out to Natty Boy, or probably Drunk, from EIS, who did provide some screenshots we're going to be sharing a little bit later in the video as well. Okay, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So I'm going to show you this. Let me break down the columns first. Total power. This is determined based on the amount of player cities per kingdom, whether they are in home kingdom or KVK. And then we add up all the kingdoms together, and that's the total power based on player cities that are on a map. And again, whether that's home kingdom or the KVK map. Total players, same thing. We're scanning all the kingdoms, and then we're looking at all the kingdoms and the KVKs, and we're looking at all the players per each kingdom. If they have a city on the map, that's where total players is coming from. Ally lords, same thing here, except we're looking at players that are only in alliances, whether that be in home kingdom or KVK, within their kingdom, right? So an example would be, let's say you're in Kingdom 1, and you have 100 people in KVK, and you got 300 people in home kingdom. It's just going to combine that as 400, and then add that, and then value that, or that would be the number for the total for that kingdom, and then it just does the same for all the other kingdoms. CH16, this is for CH16 plus, meaning CH16 players and above, or CH16 through CH25, how many of those players are there? And again, regardless if they're in home kingdom or KVK. And then we have CH25. And then total kingdoms is the amount of kingdoms that this data set was pulled from. So this basically, whatever number you see here, just go from Kingdom 1 all the way up to that number, right? So this is for the first 511 kingdoms. For context, there are, I believe, 540 kingdoms at the moment. Yes. And I think 540 was recently released. Once again, I wish they said how old the kingdom is. This is one of the things I loved about Infinity Kingdom, is you could click on a kingdom number and it would tell you how old it was. And then I believe the day that it was released in time. That's something I wish they did in CoD. Okay, personal feelings aside, let's get into it. So total power for the 2nd of November is 3.43 trillion, right? Because we have hundreds, 100,000s, millions, billions, trillion. Total players, about 200,000. Out of these 511 kingdoms, 157,000 for ally lords, and then we have 171,000 plus for CH16 plus players. Okay, now let me also add some appropriate context, which is for those of you wondering, well, boss, how can we tell if players are inactive or not? Well, the truth of the matter is that we can't. The only thing we can go off of is player cities that are on the map. Now, how does the game determine and deal with inactive players at certain city hall levels? Well, I'll tell you. If a player is not logged in for a certain time, we will take back the player's city on the map. I also reached out to CoD CS and confirmed this. Basically, what they told me is that if your player city extends or reaches this inactivity timer, your city will be removed from the map. You won't count towards kingdom power and then eventually kingdom matchmaking for KVK. So if your city hall is level 1, 5 hours, and then you'll get removed. Level 2 to 4, 8 hours. Level 5 to 7, 24 hours. Level 8 to 9, 2 days. Level 10 to 14, 3 days. Level 15 to 19, 20 days. Level 20, 25 days. And finally, level 21 to 25, 30 days. Let's continue. Now, we get to our first set 5 days later when we look at the 7th of November. Total power for those 500, and now we're looking at 518 kingdoms, right? So we've added 7 more. I should also state that I think we're only going up to about 518, but whenever Rich does the next pool, which I think is probably going to be in a day or two, we will actually go up to 534 kingdoms. And then again, I'll probably do another one of these maybe a month or, or two later. We're at 3.49 trillion. That's a 55 billion increase. So we're looking at 1.59%, which makes sense. Because you're adding new kingdoms into the game as well, and hopefully people are still gaining power overall, which is kind of a soft metric for activity. Then we have total players, 207,000, right? So we're going up about 7.4K. That's a 3.57% increase, which again, we are adding on 7 new kingdoms, so we should be seeing an increase in total players. Now, if you want to say that maybe this amount of total players is a little bit low, okay, possibly. I mean, I think that might be safe to say, but we'll have some more data to talk about that in a bit. Ally Lords, 162,000. That's plus 44.7K or plus 2.9%. For CH16 players, we're at 175,000, almost 176. That's plus 4,300 or plus 2.49%. Let's get to 1112. And again, these differentials in pink are from the previous collection to the current. So in this case, it would be from 11.7 to 11.12. So we look at 5 more days. For here, we're at 3.49 trillion. That's about a billion power increase you're seeing. So remember, we're still at 518. We haven't increased any kingdoms yet. But you're seeing the amount of power growth is a little bit lower now. We're only at about a billion. So that's 0.03%. Total players, they're seeing their first loss, which again, let me be very clear here. Player drop-off is ever happening. It's always going to be present. However, the amount of player drop-off based on new players coming into the game, but also keep in mind that new players coming into the game will be more reflective in newer kingdoms than it will in kingdoms that are not the newest kingdom, which again is for players that are getting populated there. So you'll see a smaller amount of players going into new kingdoms, or maybe rarely any at all, that are creating brand new accounts in new kingdoms, just to be clear. It's more likely you'll see migration swapping between kingdoms that are already established versus the newest kingdoms in Season 1. So we're seeing a negative 2.9 or almost negative 3K or negative 1.46% loss. Ally Lords is 158, almost 159,000. So we're seeing negative 3.2K. Again, this is from the previous stat line. We'll also show you stat lines to date as well, from 11.2 to I think 11.24 where we go till. Negative 2.03%. CH16 players, we're looking at 121 increase or 0.07%, and then we get our first stat line for CH25 players, right, 54,343. Now let's go to the second to most recent stat line, which is the 17th, right, so 5 more days. Now, we're at 3.52 trillion, that's a 28 billion increase or 0.82%. Total players, 199,000 now, right, so a loss of negative 4.4K or negative 2.22%. Ally Lords 153,000, almost 154, negative 5K loss there, negative 3.28%. CH16 players 175,000, negative 815, or negative 0.47%. And then CH25 players a 331 increase, or 0.61%. And I like the CH25 metric because to me, that I think is showing, okay, we've hit CH25, we're closer to endgame at this point. How long are we playing? What does that sustainability look like for the people that are hitting endgame? Okay, or closer to endgame, we should say. 1124, right? So now we are 22 days in for these stat lines. We are based on, again, 518 kingdoms. We haven't gone beyond that yet. And that's why I say, again, the data is going to be in a little bit of it's still a big pool, but it's not the biggest pool that it will be right once we start looking at the newish kingdoms that we can. So we're at 3.53 trillion. That's a 7.5 billion increase or 0.21%. Total players now is 195. We're at negative 4.8K or negative 2.48 from the previous stat line. 149, almost 150,000 Ally Lords, negative 3.7K or negative 2.52%. CH16, we're at 171,000. We're looking at negative 3.6K or negative 2.11%. CH25, seeing our first negative, which is a drop-off of 808 players at negative 1.5%. And again, the drop-off can just mean that the players have went inactive. Maybe they come back at a later point, but just effectively, that's how we're looking at it. Now, let's look at the to-date numbers before we look at some screenshots. To-date numbers. we are, and again, these numbers are averages, the numbers here on the top line are basically from 11.2 to 11.24. What does that differential look like? And then the percentages are averages based on each of the splits between 11.2, 11.7, 11.7, 11.12, 11.12, 11.17, then 11.17 to 11.24. Right? Yeah, 24. I had to make sure we remember the date. So, with this in mind, the averages, we've seen an increase here, right? So, and again, I probably just could have taken the percentage from this number based on the most recent or something. But again, it's I would imagine it's probably about the same, but I'll probably triple check this at a later point. Idea being is that we've seen a 92, almost 93 billion player increase, or I should say power increase, power gained from the past 22 days. This comes out to about a 0.66%, and then we're looking at, that's the average from each of the splits. Total players from 11.2 to 11.24 across the 22 days is at negative 4.8K, right? So a loss of players. Average is negative 0.65% for what those percentage average splits are. For Ally Lords, negative 7.3K or negative 1.23% averaged. CH16 players, a gain of 66, so basically almost zero. CH25 looking at a negative loss of 477. However, this is from 11.12, so this data is only about 12 days worth. But you're looking at negative 0.45% from where it was at. Now, the lines in purple, these are taken from AppBrain. AppBrain is showing the last 30-day download. This was taken on the 24th of November, about 2 days ago, where it showed, and we'll show you some screenshots too, there's averaging around 180,000 downloads per 30 days, or for the last 30 days. The previous 30 days to that, I think, was around 172, 173,000. The average daily downloads from the last 30 days is about 5.8K, or almost a little less than 6K downloads a day. Total downloads at that time, the game was at 8.8 million. Now, if you look at these numbers and you say, okay, well, you're getting about 5.8K downloads a day. You got about 180,000 downloads in the last month. This would have been from today going back to around 1024, which that is where Kingdom 518 was released around 1024, October 24th, right? So we're a little bit more than a month over that. However, even if you're still getting about 172, 173,000 downloads from September 24th through October 24th, you know, and you're seeing the amount of drop off and not increase. To me, it just feels a little steep, maybe. Is that possibly because of the misleading and misrepresenting ads that are ran for the game? Is it because of the way that new players are introduced to a new kingdom day one? Is it due to players, maybe just some players playing it and it just not maybe being their cup of tea based on an ad they watched, or based on looking at some images from the Play Store or the iOS store on the game? Did they just have a bad experience early on? I mean, there's a number of things that can factor into this. But I'd like to believe that the data is at least showing that the conversion percentage from the amount of players that are downloading the game versus how long they're staying with it compared to the number of downloads is low. But now let's look at some screenshots. So we'll start with the next one. So this was taken again from AppBrain, which is a mobile game statistics site. And you can see here the blue line is just essentially the downloads, right? This comes out to about 8.8 billion that we showed you. The green line for velocity is showing you the path of downloads for each of those dates. And you can see, right, there was like a very high peak number of downloads, right? And velocity is that number. The blue line is the left line for downloads. Velocity is the number of downloads per that date. And you can see, right, there was like over 20,000 here like before March. You even got a really high one of 15,000 here in May. Peak here, early September, some 10K downloads. But now you see the trajectory, right, kind of going downwards for the amount of daily downloads. And this is where I'm talking about for the past month, where they averaged around the 180,000 or 5.8K downloads. 5.8K downloads a day. Then we look at the next one, right? This is Google Play rating history and histogram. So just kind of showing you like it's actually going up a little bit as of late. And I think that's also because of the past couple updates where we ended up getting that big community update that really addressed a lot of things, and probably even one of the last dev feedbacks, which did a lot too as well by addressing a lot of hot topics. And then we look at the Google Play rankings. Now, for those of you that maybe have not looked at Google Play rankings before, top grossing basically is just, how much money does the game make? And then top free, I'm sure a lot of people are already familiar with that. Strategy is a subgenre of games. So games would be the primary category, where strategy would be the subcategory. And so, again, if you look at the highest rating, it would be 18 for France on strategy. The highest rating for games would be 63 here in Iran. However, this is top grossing, not top free. But still, being top grossing, you're 18 in France for strategy. And then on the games category, you're top 63 in Iran. Now, again, this is just showing you some of the top rankings from some of the countries that you can see. But it is interesting to look at, I think. And then now, these are some of the screenshots that probably Drunk shared with me. This was taken, I think, from AppTweak, I believe is the source. And this is showing the past year for the US market on iOS, and then we're going to show you the Samsung or the App Store or the Google Play Store, one for Android. So the iOS over the past year for the US market is showing download estimates for the year 273,000 again. And then they're down about 69%. Revenue estimates, which I want to point something out here, is that this is a big arse number. Like, even if you're just understanding that this is just the US market in the past year, and you're not looking at any other major markets, the fact that they made, if this is accurate or estimated, again, 15.7 million just from iOS, IAPs, right, in-app purchases, that's nuts. And again, it makes me think to myself, man, I wish I had capital to invest into my own kingdom builder, because I have no doubt in my mind that I would make the number one kingdom builder on the market. And I don't say that cockily. Well, I guess maybe I do. But I also say it confidently because I wish I had the opportunity. Like, I wish I had capital just to invest into my own kingdom builder game development and also be able to work with people that I know, whether that play these similar games, that are coders or programmers or software engineers, people that just have really good ideas. There's so many out there to collaborate with. And I love doing that as well from a lot of our community collaborations. We do our state of the game videos, etc. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, they're looking at about a loss of about, 55% revenue? And then we look at the Android or the Google Play market for the US. And you're seeing download estimates 266K, down 35% from over the year. And then you're looking at revenue estimates here, 6.43. That's about, $22 million? If that's right, but it's showing down about 52%. Absolutely nuts. Again, just from one market, and again, it's not obviously accurate, it's estimate data, but if that's right, that's a lot. It's a lot of moolah. Okay. Then we're looking at ratings gained. Now, I don't 100% know fully how to interpret this, but the way that Drunk explained it to me is that essentially you're seeing on the left column, we have number of ratings gained per star. So how many ratings of a 1-star, 2-star, 3, 4, 5 were gained, right, based on review. And this is looking at worldwide ratings, I believe, over the past year. And then on the right side, it's average ratings, new ratings. So the way I guess I interpret this is that you got a lot of green, which means kind of more positive ratings. You do have this red one, which I guess was an increase in red ratings at this period. And then we have, where is this, right? So you have some more green, right? Some spots here in red, some other spots here in red, some green though, some nice green numbers. And then you kind of have this trajectory here over what it seems like the past couple months, where you're still getting good green, but you're also getting some red and orange reviews that are being submitted. And then we have the average rating here, which is the blue line, right? That it's showing you. So, I mean, it looks like the average rating based on this, based on the amount of greens that it's hitting, I guess it would be at the point, seems to be, goodish, maybe with the exception of a couple of these early on, some of these here in the middle, which is hitting it red. This one here, which looks like probably happened in the past couple months. But then you have a decent amount of green. And like I said, I think that's pretty consistent when we look at when we looked at, I think it was this image. No, hang on. This one here, where as of late, right, the past few months, you've been seeing a little bit more positive outlook because of, I think, some of the patch updates. That doesn't mean that obviously everyone is fulfilled, but just to kind of show you some of the trends, because that's really what we're talking about here. With that in mind, that is it for me. I would love to know what you think. If there's any other particular kinds of data, like I said, I already have some other ideas on how I want to present other things going forward, but if any of you have any ideas for things you'd like to see, things you'd like for me to include on the next one that we do here, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And I just would love to know your general thoughts on this. Does it move the needle for you? Does it indicate one thing or another for you? Do you feel like, oh, this is great, we actually have some real data to go towards one side of the argument or not? Let me know what you think. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.